Can you make a live-action anime intro without ever leaving your room in under 24 hours? Of course. But can you make a good live-action anime intro without ever leaving your room in under 24 hours? Well, you can be the judge of that. If you haven't guessed from the previous two sentences, and of course, the title of the video, I made an entire live-action anime intro without leaving the comfort of my own room in under 24 hours. And this is how it kind of went. When first walking to any sort of project, we always need a plan. But unfortunately, I got a bit too cocky and thought that the process work itself would be too difficult to execute. This ended up biting me in the peach a little bit later down the line because my plan wasn't too fleshed out. The only real sort of idea I had going to the project was that I wanted something similar to the first opening of Violet Evergarden, where there are multiple close-ups of scenery, objects, and the main character of the show. Evidently, I had to go for this angle because I was essentially solo for this entire project. And of course, I hate to say this, but that was essentially my entire plan. I had no idea what sort of shots I wanted, I wasn't very certain what song I wanted to choose, and honestly, I didn't even know what camera I wanted for this project either. I was just essentially running off of pure passion and instinct, and we ran into some setbacks because of this later on, to say the least. Alright, last few finishing touches. Looks good. Alright, let's get started with the video now. Now, moving on to possibly the most frustrating part of this entire project, we are going to be speaking on the filming portion of the video. This is also where we find our first little signs of issues surrounding poor planning. When first starting off, I wanted to use my phone camera because it was pretty convenient, not too complicated, and I already had a setup in mind for the first few shots with my mini phone tripod that was like $5. What I didn't account for was the incredibly poor camera that my phone had. All the footage looked incredibly washed, the lighting was way too intense, and the image quality was poor, to say the absolute least. As you can see from the footage above, I was desperately trying to figure out how to fix this issue. Unfortunately, as much as you want to polish and clean up a turd, it's still a turd at the end of the day, so I was forced to use my Logitech StreamCam. As you can imagine, lugging around an entire laptop, which has enough heat to warm up an entire home in Antarctica, plus making space for a whole camera, to be pretty annoying, but you know, I digress. Now at this point, I at least have a camera setup ready, and the lighting at about 2 p.m. was perfect as I was looking for that slightly somber look to the film, you know, for that extra cinematic flair. And because there was a little drizzle outside, it also helped a lot with the vibe of the clips. Now fortunately, the next 1.5 hours was smooth sailing, with minor setbacks here and there, but that's a given. The main plan I wanted to execute during the filming process was to stock up on as many clips that I can of general anime-esque or cinematic clips, so I have a large pool of footage to really work with when we plug everything into Premiere Pro. Because a lot of the footage is general, we can really get creative with compiling the footage together, such as like the ordering and stuff, and if there are unusable clips within that pool, the clip itself could be easily replaced. Now that we have a satisfactory pool of video footage to really work with, let's move on to my personal favorite section, which is video editing, or in specific, editing with Premiere Pro. Now, Premiere Pro is where all the magic happens. This is where the clips come together to create essentially the entire anime intro, or at least to create the foundational pieces to make an anime intro. A few minor issues popped up during the stage of production, such as finding music. I was stuck between either Kyoumen no Nami by Yurika and Marunochi Sadistic, the cover by Unchained, and decided on using Kyoumen no Nami. The song fit the vibe I wanted a little bit more, and already was essentially pre-cut because of the fact that it was an opening for the anime Land of the Lustrous. I also struggled to find the correct clips because some of them were a bit cringy and didn't really fit the story I wanted, and there were some lighting issues as well. Fortunately, these issues were swiftly solved, at least the music portion, in the first hour. Working through the clips, I decided to really zone in on the idea of an anime intro for my channel. So I focused on creating something that really reflects the idea of the process of creation and the daily life of a content creator. That's why a lot of the clips I chose are of myself doing something like recording or editing. Once the splicing is completed, most of the work at this point is some minor stuff like color correction work to make the video look a little bit more cinematic and to fit my theme. A link in the description will be in the comment section or the description so you guys can have more to work with and to learn more for yourself. We also added some cinematic black bars, some minor audio fade, zoom, and dissolve effects, along with some prep work for the title sequence later on in production. Overall, the Premiere part was the most time-consuming, but the most satisfying portion to work with. The total amount of time it took to work on Premiere was about 6 hours, bringing the full production time about 8 hours for the entire project. After all the edits, here's what we got so far.
眠りの手閉 じ込められていた熱が水際に漂ったその色行き先を忘れて日々に溶けた無数のつぶがよ梅雨受け止める器かけた日とかけら探してる夕立ちが名付けられた世界を剥がした時それは波のように指の隙間をすり抜けて消えて形を変えくり返す夢だけが私をつないでいる
Now for the finishing touches. We are sliding right into Adobe After Effects. Most of the work here is mainly just creating the simple text effects, such as the Japanese text, an entire anime title sequence for the video. Most of the effects used for the text was some simple opacity work with the inclusion of some drop shadow to make the text pop a little. The text formatting, such as the vertical text work, was done through a website, I'll link down below in the description. Most of the work involved the title sequence because I didn't plan it before as usual, and a lot of the work was needed to make the title sequence clean, engaging, professional, and unique. You know, a little bit of the masking, text animating, and null object transformations. If you guys are interested in learning how to do something similar, I'll be dropping a mini tutorial on how to create this little title sequence from scratch. And with that being said, once all that work was done, here's the absolute final product.
眠りの手閉じ込められていた熱が水際に漂ったその色行き先を忘れて日々に溶けた無数の粒がよ梅雨受け止める器かけた日とかけら探してる夕立ちが名付けられた世界を剥がした時それは波のように指の隙間をすり抜けて消えて形を変えくり返す夢だけが私をつないでいる
Now, with everything said and done, let's do a quick recap and reflection of the project. First off, I want to note that I'm not a Japanese speaker, so the text in the video may be highly inaccurate, so keep that in mind. And of course, the Japanese was translated through the good old Google, because I had limited time and couldn't get an actual translator, so I apologize for that again. Now, let's do a time breakdown. Like I mentioned before, the first section of the video, which is the planning portion, took about probably less than 50 minutes of purely inefficient work. Moving on to the filming, which took place about 2 p.m., the process took about 2 hours of work, making about 4 p.m. of which we moved on to Premiere Pro. Premiere Pro took about 6 hours of work, which involved cutting, compiling, choosing audio, color correction, and all that good stuff, taking us to 10 p.m. I took a little gaming break between Premiere and After Effects for about 2 hours. Finally, After Effects took me about 4 hours of work, involving text animations, port translation, and a graphical animation, taking us to about 4 a.m. This would mean that the video took about 12 to 13 hours of work and overall, including a small break, being about 15 to 16 hours. Now, there are a couple of things I would do differently if I were to do this project again. Overall, I believe that most of my issues stemmed from poor planning. I could have gotten significantly more time if I just prepped what sort of shots I wanted, what sort of reference material I was looking for, and just general editing planning. I felt like there were a few hiccups on the editing portion, especially during the After Effects area, because I was pretty tired when I started using After Effects, and I'm generally just a beginner when it comes to After Effects, only having used it for like 2 weeks or so. Overall, the Premiere was very simple, After Effects same thing, and if you have extensive experience with either one, you could probably cut the time for each portion in half while making it 10 times better. Generally, I would love to revisit this project in the future when I get more experience with Premiere and After Effects, and overall, I think the project went pretty well. Now, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and I guess I'll see you in the next one.